your men can have love for the truckie. Beautiful minds, but we love getting ugly. Risk takers with a clover, man, we love getting lucky. You run, we chase fire, I love when it ducks me. Tones go off, house watch, read the address out. 1075, get up off the magic couch. 500 gallons prepared for the baddest drought. Who else you want on the way when disaster's out? Can't even get a little bit rattled when you enter with exit apparel. Mayday, member down, they'll drag you. You won't get this from every Tom, Dick, and Harold, but here's a view from the top floor with Mickey Farrell.
I find out there's this whole subculture of the society of firefighting that I'm like, I can be a part of this, man. I can really get into this.
I like that.
And over the years, I was keeping notes always. So when you're a young fireman, we used to keep these Proby notebooks.
I love that. Talk about that.
Yeah, but they they come and go, and the kids that aren't into the job, they just copy the other guy's notes, right? But the ones that love the job, they actually put content into it. I kept mine going for 19 years, and I still keep it going.
Wow.
And that's where a lot of these posts come from. So you say how long the posts take. They take a tremendous time. It's taken 19 years.
Absolutely. I love that, man.
But when I actually sit down to write one, I put probably at least 2 weeks into it because I want to make sure it's right. And I want to research it in the sense where research it from past experiences. And if something that I'm not positive, I reach out to the right guys to make sure it's right. Because I don't want it ever to come back that something was wrong or I misspoke something. Because when you're talking tactics, it's the real deal. Like,
I love it.
There's no fluff on my page. So that's why I think it took a long time for me. Not a long time, but it was kind of slower for me to get the followers or whatever it is to get out there. Because I'm talking true tactics. So there's no fluff. And I think that's what makes my Instagram a little bit different than the others, you know?
Well, don't construe followers as a judge of how good you are or how great your page is, because I can tell you this, you know, it's all about engagement. And when you throw up one of your posts, man, like you can tell it's well thought out, it's articulate, it's to the point, and it's really doing a service for the fire service. And when you look at engagement, that's what's most important, man. It's all about the engagement. It's all about what people are taking from that. How many shares, how many people are just jumping on board and wanting to talk about it. When you have a page or content that fires people up, that makes them want to talk about the job in a good light, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately. And I think it's great. I think, you know, I love the fact that you keep a journal. I just started keeping one when I started National Fire Radio. I never, ever thought I would do something like that in my life. So much happens, right? I mean, you know, for being a city fireman, right? I don't care what city you're in. You have a lot of exposure and experiences, right? And I think it's cool to value each one and give it the attention it deserves.
I'm more into writing and like literature, that side of the psychological side of the job, maybe if you want to call it. But I feel like there's a huge disconnect in the entire service where not everyone gets to go to that all-star busy firehouse or that volunteer house that has the senior guys that are sitting on the bumper or the Sunday mornings like we talked earlier. Yeah. That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's good. I guess in the good places it does, but not everyone has the opportunity. And with that, these kids that are coming out of the academy now, there's a huge disconnection between the fire academy and what you learned because, of course, instructors are governed to teach a certain way. And you have to check the boxes, and I understand that. But that gray area where the disconnection is from there to the fire floor. And there's a lot to be said between the fire academy and the fire floor. As simple things as ladder angles, fly in, fly out, how to cut a roof. They teach you how to start a saw, right? And count the teeth on the blade, but they don't really tell you how to cut a roof and where to cut a roof and why to cut a roof. Or if you pull up and there's no fire, where do you determine where to cut that hole? So these things that all these dots have to be connected, and there's a huge loss in that. So I'm trying to bring that to these young firefighters that are motivated and connect the dots for them. Because like I said, they don't. Not every firehouse has that good senior guy anymore, and so unfortunately, through social media and everyone talks about the social media and how bad it is for the fire service in general, and yeah, it is pretty bad on some levels.
Sure.
But, the senior man's global. It's right here. This is the senior man now.
Yeah.
Right, and that's pretty powerful. So I just think by Instagram, not Facebook, but if you navigate through Instagram and you find the people that are out there that are doing the right thing, And even the best are checking their resources, making sure it's the right content.
Yeah.
And that's it. I just think that's what it's about, you know.
I love the senior man comment because you mentioned volunteers and not everybody has the ability to be in that busy house or that department that has a senior man that can guide them. And I think listening to your story earlier where you grew up in a house with 2 senior men.
Yeah.
And you guys talked shop. It wasn't fluff. It was you talked tactics, you talked firefighting, and I think a lot of that's missing these days. I don't think a lot of kids have that influence, like maybe you had, and so and you went through it, right? You went from the volunteer ranks to a career department, and seeing the differences and seeing that I'm in a slower department here, now I'm in a busy urban department here, and the disconnect between the two. But how do we bridge that gap,
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's powerful. I think it's super powerful. And I love the fact that you mentioned that you didn't know this whole other world existed.
Yeah, it changed my life. It really did.
Because once you put this content out, Top Floor Tactics isn't going anywhere. It will be there forever. It's kind of like what we're doing at National Fire Radio. These podcasts, as long as there's a social platform out there, our content will be available for my grandkids, my great-grandkids, my great-great-grandkids to see.
Yeah.
And it's leaving a legacy. And I think that's hugely important. So,
Yeah, and that's a big part when I did find this underground world that existed. I think that's what was holding me back. I think that's what was holding me back mentally, maybe in the firehouse, was like I wanted to sit on the couch with my grandfather and my dad and talk tactics, but it wasn't happening. People were on the phones, they were watching movies and stuff. That's what happens. That's what we all do.
Of course.
But I was missing that. And then I found it, and I was like, it kind of gave me a rebirth. And yeah, and you asked where the Top Floor Tactics, what made me do that was when I found this world that you guys created that was going on, I realized that, well, I've had this world for years.
Yep.
But there was no one in it. It was just me. And my dad, we'd still bounce ideas off each other. And some core guys that I worked with, But really, I didn't realize there was a whole thing going on here. So I said to myself, like, I have this notebook. Why can't I just take some of these ideas and throw them out there and see what happens?
Hell yeah.
So I slowly built it. It's funny. I blocked all the guys that I know originally because I didn't want to see me doing it. And then they find out. And then they find out, and they're like, what the fuck, man? Why are you holding this back from us? And honestly, I guess maybe it was a little bit, you're scared what people think of you. I mean, and anyone who says they're not, I think they're full of shit. But you have to outgrow that. And I think with confidence and time and experience, and more importantly, things that have been passed on from different generations down, why hold that back? Why hold that word legacy away from the young guys? Because that's what's missing.
Absolutely.
It really is.
And you said it too, right here. I mean, this is playing such a big part of what we are today and how this younger generation learns. Let's put this to use on the good end.
Yeah.
Let's use this for guys like yourself and the others to get that message out. So I think I think something really cool too, when we were talking earlier about your lineage, right? And just understanding, we talk about legacy. You're the outlet you give, right? You were seeking something, right? 15 years in, you hit a lull. You were seeking something like, hey, man. And then you said before that this world existed and you came and found this world and you realized that you were living in that world, but by yourself. What a profound conversation, because how many kids are living in that world by themselves right now, right? There are a lot of people that want to better themselves. They want to find an outlet, and everybody's seeking something. And I think it's pretty profound that, 15 years in a busy urban department, and then you come to realize, like, hey, man, I was seeking more. Like, I was missing the connections. I was missing the conversations. I was missing the engagement. And that's happening everywhere. And I'm super happy to hear stories like that it comes back around, because we talk a lot on National Fire Radio about the senior man. And 19 years on the job, I consider you a very senior man in your position, right? You might have guys still in your house that have 20 years, 25 years.
I got a guy who's got 40 years. So.
40 years. Wow. Hot damn, man.
He's still the first one dressed every run.
Nice. That's outstanding. Yeah. I love that. But 19 years in the job, you bring plenty to the table. And so the content you're putting out represents that. But I think there's something to be said for that. And I get so excited when I hear stories like that, because there's so many guys that leave taking it with them. They leave disgruntled. They leave not into the job. Like when you walk into the firehouse on the first day, you said you wanted to be a fireman, and you were there because you wanted to be. You did everything you could to be that fireman. And then you get there, and then after all those years, you're going to leave not in the same position, not in the same, I mean, for me, that's a struggle. I have a hard time. I hate those conversations, and I don't care if it's career or volunteer, man. People are leaving this business and taking everything with them, leaving nothing behind, and leaving disgruntled. And
the argument now people are saying is that the workload is down. But there was a great podcast I heard, Old School, a chief from my department, a retired guy, John Salker, you can say his name.
Sure.
And Rick Lasky, right? Great podcast. But I just listened to one the other day, and they were talking about that spike in the 70s and how that gets factored in now to the workload, when in reality, we're probably doing more work than we are now if you take that out of the equation, right? So if you take the workload from forever without that spike in the war years, then we're probably doing more work now. So I think that whole argument that the work's down, so morale's down, I don't really buy into that, really,